Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the TCG Scrubs podcast. I'm here in person with
Oscar.
and not in person with
Joe from TCG Scrubs.
So we have a pretty cool episode. Yeah. So we have a pretty cool episode today. We're actually, obviously, Oscar's in person. That's already at least 20% less cool. But to help make up the difference, we're having the artist formerly known as J Ruler on. He's now going by Feldmarschall Klaus in response to his new game he's got coming out here called Darkest Days. So we're going to be having him on here in just a sec. We're going to talk about his new game, Darkest Days, what got him into it, how the game works, and then we're going to be talking about specifically why he ended up leaving Force of Will, if he's going to come back, his thoughts on the current state of the game with the CEO becoming more involved in the GP scheduling switch around, and his thought, since one of the reasons he said he left was because of cancels, we want to find out his thoughts on the new green spoilers. So a lot of cool stuff to talk about with him, so we'll go ahead and rein him in here. Before we bring him on, we'll real quick go over the ARG that just happened. We just got the results for. So there was an ARG in, where is it, Oscar? Indianapolis.
Indianapolis.
Cool. And so 42 people showed up, so it was a much higher attendance than your normal ARGs, which was cool. There's a pretty good variety of, as far as the ruler breakdown goes, there wasn't any like one ruler that was like 30 of them were in attendance and stuff like that. It was a pretty decent breakdown from what I saw. And so the top 8, though, was pretty cool. So in not the correct order, we had a Fairer deck. The deck name was GreeningRemnant.com. They freaking stole that from us. Oh my god, that was our idea, Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm super mad. Now it's going to look like we're copying them.
It's super original.
If you see a deck name called TCGScrubs.com later, just know we had that last year at the GP, Oscar. Well, kind of. We had a variant of it. We had a Gil deck, the Green Gil starter ruler, which is pretty awesome. A lot of green cards in there. But it's cool to finally see him get in there before he even gets the god tier level support he's about to get. That people are finally realizing. I personally thought he should have been topping. I know people think Fear is by default better, but I slightly disagree. I think the access to cards for a cheaper rate and the ability to mill through your deck is
well, no,
strong.
Nobody thought it was better. They know Gil's better. It's just they knew they couldn't counter IU with Gil right now. So
no, I saw a lot of discussions about, specifically, I think it was Alex Blandon that talked about how he thought that Fair just was by default better with the same type of deck list as Gil for doing the same things, which I disagreed with.
On stream last time.
Yeah, but that's cool. He's finally getting recognition. This is, like I said, this is not in the order, but I'll get to that in a sec. But next was another Fair deck. Oh, that's exciting. Next was this is where it gets cool. We got Mikage deck. So this was a pretty cool deck. It ran, the obvious stuff. Had Splash Green with Otherworld and Severin. It ran Lethal Arrow. It had Alice's World of Madness, which is pretty cool. And a lot of other interesting things. We'll have an article put together of all this, and we'll link it in the description below.
Why are they playing Fly? Oh no, never mind. That's a fair list. I thought Colin was going in order, but he skipped the second fair list. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. No, all right.
I saw Flying Cloud, and I was like, why would we run Flying Cloud?
Flying Cloud's been popular lately.
But it would only apply to a green ruler for the flying part, and then you'd have to attach it to the resident area. You have to give it flying, but
well, at first glance, my guess is because
no, he wasn't running it. I was looking at the wrong list.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at the completely wrong list.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so we got a Mikage deck in there. Next, we got a Lumia deck. Once again, people were afraid that Lumia was going to drop off because it had just the surprise factor, but it's cool to see it again.
It's a Fair's Command Lumia.
Yeah, it's good. Got a Misty Dragon Spirit. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so that was cool to see that in there. We got another Mikage deck. Deck name is Mikage Still Good? ? It's running similar things. Alice's World of Madness, Lethal Arrows. Not Okay, no, there it is. I was like, I don't see Otherworld and Severines, but nope, there's those playsets. Ultimate Swordsmaster Faria.
Yeah, I was gonna look at that. I don't remember which card that is. Is that the one that doesn't take damage?
Yes.
Spent the first damage you dealt with this card. Sure. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'd be interested to see some of these decks in action. And next we have another Mikage deck. Its name is Pineapple. I don't get it. But this one's pretty cool. You got Gil, Usurper of Power, 4 place of them, and he ran 1 Orphika in there as well, which was kind of cool in my opinion. Very underused card in my opinion. So that's pretty cool. And once again, running some of the normal cards. It looks like more Outsword of Madness.
The previous Mikage build didn't have Demon Flames in it.
Well, I don't think this one did.
This one, yeah.
Did the one before that have Demon Flame?
I don't think so. I didn't. Now that I think about it, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah,
they didn't even run red, so.
Yeah, only one ran Demon Flame. Because there's no reason to when you have Lethal Arrow and you don't need that much destruction when you can have stuff like Final Battle. So there's no reason to run 2 different cards for that type of destruction when you automatically are killing 4 Resonators, plus you have Final Battle for a field wipe, plus other conditions to kill stuff. So
yeah,
I think it makes sense overall. Because we're not in a...
Because if you... I mean, you're probably going to run green anyways, so...
Yeah, we're not in a Resonator-heavy format, and the ones that do are Resonator-heavy, like Pharaoh is kind of Resonator-heavy, is able to give Barrier, so in that case you need Final Battle anyways. You can't just kill stuff with Demon Flame, so it makes sense to make room for other cards. And that Mikage deck also side-decked Zero as the ruler as well, which is kind of cool. And then lastly, we have another Fair deck. Woo!
Yeah, no Fair love. See, Colin still hates Fair, even though it's pretty obvious now, in my opinion, that he's not as good. And
he's 100% as good. Just Gil is gonna completely shit on it once the new set comes out. But Fair is still good, 100%.
Yeah. But there's other rulers that can be played, so he's not like the best.
Well, yeah, but I also got to remember it could also have this surprise factor of the Mikages as well. There's always you got to calculate in at least like 40% surprise factor for new rulers.
From a post I was reading, is they were built to counter a lot of like things like Lumia and Favor.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. That makes sense.
So it'll be interesting to see if any of this sticks at the next, not the next GP, but the next ARG. I don't know when is the next ARG.
I'll look here in a second, but I was going to give the ruler breakdown. I had
okay, yeah.
8 Favor, 7 Lumia, 5 Rhea, 3 Ayu, 3 Mikage, 3 Gil Ahamut, 2 Zero, 2 Welser, 2 Tree, and then 1 of Kaguya, Charlotte, Lunia, Gil, Fox, and Book of Dark.
So that one Gil that was being played in its top 8. That's awesome.
And then to clarify on who...
The 3 Mikages all got top 8.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
And for who won the event, nobody technically won the event. Apparently they got the top 4 and decided to split. But when bringing the playmats for 2 of the guys, they said they designed them differently this year. So technically first place would get one instead of champion or first place. So those 2 guys decided to play it out to see who got it amongst themselves. And technically the Mikage winner won against them. But there is no true winner of the event.
And it's kind of cool because Oscar was just talking about how he wished they had championship playmats like Pokemon.
Yeah, and ARG's doing it.
I have a championship playmat.
Yeah, ARG's the ones that's doing it. GPs don't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like...
But the guy, Jim, who runs ARG, said he's not a fan of those playmats, having separate ones for championship. But yeah.
I'm a fan.
Well, yeah, no, they're cool. I like them. But, so yeah, it's pretty cool to see all that.
So next one is Charlotte, North Carolina, February 24th.
And then after that will be States on March 3rd and 4th, right?
Yeah.
And then after that is...
San Jose, California, April 14th. And you guys can go to argcircuitseries.com for dates on not just these, but to find out where states are being run near you.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be one near us.
There's one in Richardson.
Yeah, I saw them talking about that. That's why I was asking about what the attendance was, because I was like, if your attendance is 20, I don't know about a 2-hour trip and possibly hotel.
Their last dates was 20 plus.
That's dangerously close to 20.
I mean, it's pretty close. Like seeing as ours had like around 40, I think, right?
22.
22. Okay. My bad.
Anyways, but yeah. Also, let us know in the comments if you guys are coming to the GP Richardson here, because we'd love to meet anyone who's going there. I think we're going to be doing a meetup with everyone who's going to the GP is going to be doing a meetup at a yet to be determined store. I'll put it in the comments below once it's fully determined.
That's pretty determined already. It won't be open long by the time we get there.
What store is it?
Comic Asylum.
Comic Asylum
in Richardson.
We'll be there. Jeremy DMO73 will be there. Stephanie might be there, and then
sounded like it.
And then sounds like a decent amount of people who will be at the GP will be there as well, and just handing out if people are interested. It sounds like they might run a sealed event and different things like that. So that could be a lot of fun. You guys should bring your decks as well if they don't run a sealed event. I'd love to play some games against some random people.
And again, to be clear, like we'll be getting there around 10:30, 11, and they close around 11:30. So.
Yeah, but if we start a tournament, most card stores are okay with staying up late. We'd have to ask the owner, though. I'm sure people know.
If they even want to fire the tournament off by that point. Colin's hoping for a lot here.
I'm just saying, we can all just go over to, like, find a pizza place and play games there. I'm just saying. But, yeah, we'll go ahead and get over to J Ruler now. All right, everyone. So we're here, as promised, with the artist formerly known as J Ruler. Say you go by Feldmarschall Klaus now, right?
Yes, Feldmarschall Klaus.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's why I need Michael here. Michael's the one that knows all that.
Just so I don't stir too much controversy, like on my bio on the Darkest Days CG website, it does explain that while I'm not a fascist, I do find the access to always, like, the villains always have, like, the coolest gear and names and stuff, so I thought I'd take on a name and a persona that kind of, had that.
That's pretty much identical to Michael, is he's very similar. Like, one of his favorite, all of his favorite weaponry is the World War II German stuff. His Luger is his favorite handgun, and he's very fascinated by all that stuff. I had sent him over our gameplay because I figured he would like this game as well. Cool. But yeah, so for those unfamiliar, so you left your YouTube channel and all that temporarily for now, and so you're working on this game, right. Darkest Days. So you want to tell everyone about what that is and sort of what got you into it?
Sure. I did a recent video, and I believe you guys saw this on Negative Legends. Sorry, I've been drinking a little bit like usual, so kind of warms me up for these things. But I did a video for Negative Legends channel recently, where I answered a lot of these. So I'm gonna try to be give you a little bit different answers for these, so that your audience, had they seen that, not get the same information. But Darkest Days, in its essence, is a project that I am really excited about doing, and I always wanted to do my own trading card game, and of course trading card games are big and expensive endeavors, so I thought, what better way to try to do this in a way that's free to me and also free to the people who want to play it. So I said, why don't we just do this as a Lackey project, so you can download the plugin for free and play the game. So it is a World War II card game. So there's no physical cards yet. We'd like to transition into doing that, but it is a World War II themed card game that each installation of the game moves throughout the entire course of the conflict. So we're not starting at the invasion of Poland, but rather the Battle of France, and then each expansion slowly crawls over the entire conflict from beginning to end over the course of different campaigns and what have you. So it's all 100% free to play and 100% free to get involved in. And it's just like, I'm not looking to make money on this, but rather take the same concept that we had with the jruler.net project and make that like the community aspect and make that into our own game.
That's pretty, and I like some of the aspects of that as well. You had talked about where, because it's on Lackey, if there's an errata you need to do or a switch, you can do that almost instantaneously and just release a thing, letting us know, and do cool. It's easier to do. I assume it'd be easier to do Lackey tournaments and all that because this is the only platform of it, so people are already familiar with it. It's not a weird learning curve and all that. So
exactly. You know, and something I wanna sell on this, you know, the big thing to me, like you guys have heard this I'm sure before, like scratch your own itch, right? So if there's something that you want that doesn't exist out there, you got to get out, roll your sleeves up and do it yourself. So like I'm a huge fan of World War II, and there's at least one comment that I saw on Negative Legends video that him and I collaborated on that said, meh, I have no interest in even trying it, which is great. Don't, like, if you're not into that. But like for me, you know, and Sacred Beats, who unfortunately couldn't be here due to, I'm sure, a hangover and stupor, as usual, and James Heihachi, who does the Force of Will plugin, and he's doing this plugin as well. So he was part of the jruler.net team. And, you know, something that we wanted to do is not have this disconnect between the designers of the game and the fans of the game, but rather integrate them. So the fans say, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a card that, or if we had a mechanic that did this, and then we make it? Or, hey, we don't like this, and like you said, if there's an errata that doesn't work, we're not going to sit here and deliberate because we've already printed 500,000 copies of this card and it's already going out into the booster pack by the time the spoilers hit and there's a big uproar. We just, a couple clicks and it's fixed. The game's fixed. So that's, to us, the big attraction is, like, you tell us what you want. Like, we're going to lay it out there. You tell us what you want by playing the game, and we'll make it to suit your guys' tastes. You know, and there's just so much more you can do with a digital game than you can a physical one.
Yeah, no, I already saw a bit of that. Whether or not any of that comes to fruition or not, it was still cool. And you have a Discord channel for the game, and seeing a couple throughout the course of a couple people just like asking different things or making suggestions, and then having that interaction between you, and then be like, oh, we did that because such and such, or that's a good idea, we'll look into that, and stuff like that. It's nice to have that instantaneous like interaction, and feeling like if people were to really get into the game, feeling like your voice is heard. Because to your point earlier, it's in the same way that I feel like Caster Chronicles is a very, very niche audience of people who like lewdness. I feel like this is the same way for this. Obviously, there's going to be people who aren't huge into World War II, but I feel like the main audience are going to be people who are like, oh man, I love World War II, or I've wanted to learn more about this. This is a cool avenue since I already like card games and all that.
Yeah,
you know, that's definitely true. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I really like the saying of like scratch your own itch, and you know, if it's not there, you need to like make it. Like I think either on the last podcast or something, or maybe just Colin and Oscar and I were talking about this, and you know, Colin would really love like a Marvel TCG game, and you know, and sort of like you know, if he wanted that, like he'd have to make it, because there's not a lot of good Marvel.
Well, that one I couldn't make. I'd get sued into the ground, but
right. Yeah, but I mean, there are ways to go around doing that. I think this speaks to an important point of, you know, we're all approximately the same age, the same generation, and I'm sure the majority of your audience, like the jruler.net audience, was, you know, 20s, maybe 30s, teens also. And it's like, for us, we've grown up in a time in which we can thankfully do that sort of thing. You know, there's not, if we go back to the previous generation, there was Wizards of the Coast, and then there were these few other companies who didn't last. Now we exist in an environment where everything is changing. So like tabletop games are now digital games also, but they still keep that feel. Like, I play a lot of Star Realms online and Ascension, like deck building games, like on Steam, And I mean, they do a good job of, it's still cards, if you will, right? It's still a tabletop that you're playing on, and it still has that same genre and feel, but it's digital, and it's in a medium that's way more accessible than playing a physical card game. It's cheaper. You can play against people around the world. You can play day or night. You don't have to travel anywhere to do that. And so I think people are demanding those sort of options, and it's never been easier to make something like that, and it's never been easier to play something like that. I just think it's a really exciting time. Now, Lackey, of course, is not, I'm just going to tell you right now, not the best medium to do that in, but for an experimental basis, like if you guys wanted to get into doing something like that, like anyone out there watching that, now is the time. Like we live in the age where we can experiment with these things, and I just find it really exciting. And to me, that was more exciting than continuing on the J Roller project.
That's awesome. What Oscar and Joey, I explained it. Before you came on, I explained to Joey how the game works and all that. So I'm curious if you want to give a brief overview of how the game works, and I'd be curious to hear Oscar and Joey's thoughts on that type of gameplay and interaction, because it is pretty unique overall.
Sure. I will say up front that it's very heavily inspired by my favorite trading card game of all time, and the first trading card game I ever played back in the mid 90s. It actually shows you how old I am. I'm probably a lot older than you guys think that I am. But when I was in grade school in the early and mid 90s, there was a game called the Star Wars customizable card game, and it was way beyond our 10-year-old minds to conceive of all the strategies on how to play, but it was so complex, so rich, and so elegant that there were certain parts of the game design that I'd never seen replicated anywhere else, and that game went defunct in 2001. So I tried to take certain parts of that to incorporate into this game. So in the Darkest Days card game, you come to the Lackey virtual table with 2 decks. You have the Axis and the Allies. So every player has to have 2 decks of 60 cards exactly. And you each take turns playing the Axis and the Allies. Now, of course, your decks are going to be totally different. So, I mean, the Allies are, eventually Great Britain, France, the United States, the Soviet Union. The Axis, the Italians, the Germans, the Japanese, and then, of course, all the smaller satellite states that were either puppet states of the Axis or, minor allies and things. And you can mix all of those together. But you play 2 games. You don't play best 2 out of 3. So, Colin, if you and I sit down, we randomly determine who will play first. Let's say you play the Axis on the first game, I play the Allies. And then on the second game, we switch. Okay, you'll be the Allies and then I'll be the Axis. And at the end of every game, your deck is your life. So if you win the first game, Colin, you have 15 cards left in your deck. You score 15 victory points. So, in the second game, if I score 14 victory points, I have 14 cards left in my deck. I score 14 for the round, and I lose by 1 because you had a point of a margin of victory 1 point higher. So within this game, your deck is your life, and you do have to employ 2 strategies against every opponent, and those strategies are open to you. In the game, the gist is you have to manage the logistics of the battlefield. So you have a field commander that you can change throughout the game, but you start the game with a field commander and a location that goes into play for both players. And those apply global effects. So your field commander gives you constant bonuses or penalizes your opponent in some way. Kind of like, of course, you guys know about Force of Will, everyone watching, I'm sure. It's kind of like an addition that you would begin, as like a personality that you would begin with the game. He's the commander of your armed forces at the moment. And like an addition, he gives you some kind of effect throughout the game. You can change it later, but you can only have 1 field commander. A location affects both players equally, and it applies globally. Locations can change also throughout the game, but there's only 1 for both players. You also have supplies. So instead of having magic stones, any cards from your hand can be put face down as supplies. They're all homogeneous. There's no attributes. Units are like your resonators. And they come into play, and you have to pay supplies to put them. They have various effects. You also have orders cards, which are like further additions, if you will, that apply effects that have increasing costs. The first orders cost is always 1 supply, then 2 supplies, and then 3 supplies. And you have to keep those supplies committed just to keep those orders in play. And most of the fun, like I won't spoil it for you guys, you'll have to check out the rule book, but most of the fun comes with these skirmishes. And that, Colin, you said after we played a few times that it was much more involved Pokemon. In that the way that the game plays is everything, there's hardly any surprises. You're not playing like quick cast chance and things from your hand. Everything's laid out like chess. You can see your opponent's units, you can see your units. When you enter combat as the attacker, you get to choose how your units get formed into different formations, who and where they're attacking. Then your opponent has to decide how and if and when they're going to defend. And then skirmishes take place one at a time. Ultimate objective is to defeat your opponent's deck, destroy their deck, deplete their deck through damage. There's just a huge number of interactions. Like, I'm a big fan of simple rules that can be infinitely expanded upon. So that's kind of the more or less condensed version of how the game works.
Nice.
Do you think games are like pretty short, or do they take like a good amount of time? Like they don't get too complex?
Without testing it beforehand too much and then putting it out there, we did test it a lot. But Sacred Beats and I played, who now goes by Rear Admiral Butts, by the way, on Discord. But we tested it with each other a lot, and then of course as we became familiar with the game, our games went like that because we knew all the cards and everything. And so we were worried about, is it going to be too quick of a game or is it going to be too short of a game? And then we started putting it out there and people started playing it. It's almost invariably 40 to 60 minutes per 2-game set.
Okay.
So like we both play Axis and Allies, we each take turns. Each game out of those 2 games might take 15 to 30 minutes at most.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad.
So it works out. It works out just like most other games.
Yeah, I know ours took a little while, I think, but
They can, yeah, absolutely. So I would say a good 50 or 60 minutes to sit down and play 2 games, or each of you get to take a turn as the Axis and the Allies.
Any thoughts on your end?
That's about as long as the 3 forceful games. Most decent games.
So since Oscar's super quiet, but yeah, he's absorbing. But yeah, no, if you so before we move on to the next set of topics, if you guys want to find out more about this, there's the YouTube channel. Oh, you want to?
Could I ask him some questions?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, so putting aside, I'm sure the the actual battle mechanics and card game mechanics are pretty interesting. But I want to know more about because I remember you saying that each set is going to be focused on events in World War II. How narrow are you planning on getting? Are you gonna have just one set focused on Stalingrad, or more of? Or are you gonna have it a little bit expanded? Are you gonna have each set be flavorful? So during is the invasion of Normandy going to be one set, and then the Axis might have more defensive cards and Allies might have more attacking cards.
Right.
Battle of Midway is gonna have more ships. I don't do you have all of these in mind as you're going along? How long
Yes,
do you think sets are gonna take too?
So as of right now, and I'm going to give a lot of spoilers, and you can't hold me to this. If this project does work somewhat successfully, and for me, success would be having 100 people on Patreon, so we have enough funding to give away prizes for tournaments. Sorry to promote myself, but it's not like I haven't done this on your show before. So on the Darkest Days Patreon, if we get to 100 patrons or more, we're going to do monthly tournaments where we give away medals. The winners will get the Iron Cross with Darkest Days champion on it, and the German color bands and everything. We'll give away physical cards and posters and t-shirts and all kinds of stuff. That if this game gets to that level, it's already a success. If we have 100 players, it's already a success to me. So I've already planned out every set till the game concludes, and it would take 3 years to get through all of it. We're releasing card sets every other month. Now, I don't have every card planned out or
Right.
even close to it. I'm a few sets ahead. But I know the themes of each one and the names of each set going from now to the next 36 months. So you hit the nail right on the head where each one is very thematically specific, and the Axis and allies, like the countries that are fighting it, the theaters of war that are being fought, and also the themes for each side change. So in the first set, called The Gathering Storm, the Axis, which is comprised of Germany and Italy, are invading France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and being supported by the United Kingdom. So this is like May, June 1940. The Axis obviously has like the aggro strategy overall, and the Allies have the controlled defense strategy. Now, the set that we're starting to spoil now is called Against the Tide, which, if you're a Patreon subscriber of $1 or more, you can get access to the spoilers twice a week until it's released in March of this year. And in that set, the Axis has already broken through the Allied defenses, and now they're beginning their occupation of the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, etc. And you have the evacuation through Dunkirk. So at this point, the Axis is starting to move away from a pure aggro strategy to an aggro and then a sort of chip damage strategy where they're occupying territory and they have more residual damage cards. And the Axis is still, or the Allies are still defense, or they start to get comeback cards where, yeah, they may lose, but they can still jab at you from the shadows. Mm-hmm. As the game goes on, you know, the theater will change between Atlantic and Pacific. We'll have different blocks going back and forth. So you'll be fighting in the Atlantic in one block and then the Pacific in the other. But the sets will be very focused on certain theaters of combat. So I'll already go ahead and spoil the first block. So we have the Gathering Storm and Against the Tide, which I just described. And the third set is going to be the Battle of Britain. So it's going to introduce air combat for the first time. So there's going to be a new card type that introduces, you know, bombing, strafe, intercept, airborne operations where you drop paratroopers. That's going to come in the Battle of Britain. So it's going to focus mostly on aerial combat and anti-air combat, with a minor focus still on supporting existing strategies. And then the fourth and final set of block number 1 is going to be called Blackened Skies, where it's the Operation Merida, which is the Axis, the Italian, Albanian, and German invasion of Greece and Yugoslavia. So you're going to see much more airborne operations, many more paratroopers, and then of course you're going to be adding a number of new countries to the mix. So, and that's going to introduce new game mechanics that thematically go along with that theater of combat. It's going to be the Mediterranean theater.
Which set would you say you're most excited about? Like do you have like one you're just like, oh man, once this launches, like the battle mechanics gonna be great? If I'm so lucky, when we get to Operation Barbarossa, where the Germans invade the Soviet Union in the summer of 1941, once the Soviets are introduced, all bets are off. Like the game goes nuts. I mean, it's just the things that we have planned for the German and Soviet front takes the game to a whole new level. Like we don't want to we thought about going full throttle from the beginning, but we don't want to overdo it at first. Mm-hmm. But the game mechanics become so much more rich and complex. And if I may wax poetic for just a moment, to me there's a lot of poetry in trading card games. Like I've talked about this on the J Ruler YouTube channel. When you can match the theme and the functional mechanics of a card, that's poetry to me. That's art. So there's a lot of, sometimes you can marry the card title, the image, and then the effect, and it kind of gives you that reflective, like, this makes sense to me. I can see this exist. Mm-hmm. Like that's the kind of level of intensity that we have planned for those future sets.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
I really like. I know Joey's a big fan of flavor.
Right. Yeah, it's important. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. You guys can. So you and I had actually done some games on it, and that's over at your YouTube channel. If you want to say what I forgot off the top of my head.
Yeah. Darkest Days on YouTube. Just look up Darkest Days. If you guys wouldn't mind, maybe link to it in the description.
Oh yeah.
The channel is so small right now that I can't have a vanity URL, so it can't be YouTube at like / Darkest Days yet until you have 100 subscribers. So head over there and subscribe so we can do that. But also, if you go to Darkest Days CG, that's darkestdayscg.com, has links to the YouTube channel, the Discord. All the rules, the Lackey plugin, all the spoiler articles, all the gameplay, and everything goes there. And if you are interested, guys, please head over to darkestdayscg.com and sign up for the email updates, so that you don't have to worry about like looking this stuff up. We'll just email it to you automatically when all that new stuff comes out, like 3 times a week.
Yeah, and it's just patreon.com/darkestdays.
Patreon.com/darkestdayscg.
Okay.
CG card game.
And like I said, I'll have all 3 of those links in the description below. But yeah, go check it out. Like I said, there's some gameplay that he and I did. If you guys want to see how well I can do with that, and you do some deck profiles and talks on strategy, as well as what else do you do on the YouTube channel?
We also do some game discussion, kind of like the theory behind game design, that. Like we said, we wanted to be transparent where big companies can't be. Of course, this is just a few-man operation, but we feel the need sometimes to want to share like our inner process. Like, this is why we took this route and not this route. Just kind of have that behind-the-scenes view of things.
That's awesome. All right, so yeah, definitely go check that out, guys. It's pretty fun. I really like this skirmishes, like you said, interaction. There's a lot more to it than just like attacking and defending with how you're able to create formations and all that. I think adds a whole interesting layer to it. But yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no, it is pretty cool. Hopefully I can get Michael on there. But all right, so moving on to our next couple of topics here, shifting into the Force of Will realm that you guys listeners are familiar with. So have you well, let's start with the first question, is because a lot of people were asking, so if you want to give a brief rundown of what all happened, why you left the game essentially.
Well, let me first preface my explanation by saying I don't speak for anyone else except for myself right now, so don't drag Sacred Beats or Rear Admiral Butts, as he's known now, into this. So I'm just speaking for myself, but it's something I had been thinking about for a little while before we decided in December of last year to stop doing the YouTube channel and the website, for at least put it on hiatus. Something I've been thinking about for a few months. And the day that I decided to stop playing Force of Will altogether was the day of the GP announcements. They announced the Grand Prix for the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And there were, if I'm not mistaken, 8, which I believe 2 have now disappeared from their lineup on their website, Hawaii and the one in California. So there are 6. Now think about the United States, Canada, and Mexico have a combined population of something like 550 million people. Okay, and in the United States and Canada, I don't mean any disrespect, but in the United States and Canada, those are 360 odd million of the richest people in the entire world. And you're telling me you can't get more than 6 Grand Prix in a population of 360 million of the world's richest people? I'm sorry, guys, but it's a sinking ship as far as I'm concerned. I know a lot of people are going to get mad about that. Negative Legend just did a great video on his thoughts on the state of Force of Will. I would recommend everyone to watch that if they haven't. But I'll just tell you up front my opinion. It's a sinking ship. I will be surprised if... I think Force of Will get as far as 1 or 2 sets into the next cluster after Rhea Cluster, at which point there will be approximately 10 or 15 people worldwide that will buy those cards. I don't think Force Will survive into 2019. with 6 GPs, and I think the first one had exactly 100 people.
Yes.
This season. All right, so
technically 101, I think. There's a panda.
101. So it's just not working out. Like, I think the TCG market's too fragmented. From what I understand, none of them are doing it that well overall, and people are just moving on to new platforms. I think digital is the way to go anymore.
Well, I think that's why we're seeing like Magic the Gathering Arena is trying to do a huge push right now. I think Wizards might be seeing that as well. What is regarding the GPs? What was your opinion on right now? We have 2 of them are sealed format and 1 is Wanderer format, and the rest are New Frontiers.
I mean that's a positive development. I would have liked to have seen GPs 1 be more numerous and 2 host both events the same weekend. Make it a 3-day weekend. Do the New Frontiers day 1 and 2, and then have a follow up of Wanderer. A one-off, one-day event, a little speedier. But I mean, if you're gonna drag someone out there, like when Sacred Beats and I went to the GPs we went to, I mean, we're talking 4 or 5 hour drive. Like, I'll go for 3 or 4 days. Do everything. Do a sealed, do a sealed event, do a Wonder event, do New Frontiers as the main event. Like, it's a party, man. Like, that's how you bring people in. You got to throw a party that people want to show up to. And,
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I don't know what none of us know what the finances are of Force of Will, but, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you're trying to drive home a game, bring it to the top, make as much money as you can, bringing a big fan base in, you don't launch 2 or 3 other games and a bunch of side projects. And then, your bottom bitch, your cash cow, Force of Will, who your company's named after, you don't avoid throwing the biggest event of the year, the big competitive event. Like, if anything, you borrow money to host as many GPs as you can to give people a sense of security, because this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The less support the company's willing to put into it, the less faith that people have in it, and the less product they end up buying. Like, it's not a good cycle. I've seen this. I've been playing trading card games for 25 years. This is not a good sign. I've seen companies come and go. The same thing.
What are your thoughts on the sort of newfound since December interaction with the CEO and the community and his articles and all that?
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late.
He wanted to come out of the shadows and apologize for fucking up for 3 years because his company's at the verge of bankruptcy. Why should we the fans trust you? Like, I'm just gonna say, Force of Will. I hope we can all agree, Force of Will is a great game by and large. Like, I have not had as much fun playing a trading card game in years, and that's why I just got hooked on Force of Will. Right back here in this closet is a stack of 5,000 count boxes that's this high. You can't, you know what I mean? Filled with cards. Like, I haven't done that in forever. Like, the amount of money I spent on those cards, unbelievable. So much fun. And to watch that get driven into the ground after, it's not like we didn't tell them what was wrong. And to not listen, and then all of a sudden, when your company's probably almost out of money and you're typing these blog posts in your broken English from a park bench in center Tokyo, it's a little too late at that point, I'm sorry to say.
Oscar, you want to...
Yeah, we had asked on Patreon some questions anybody would have for you, and we had one response. Okay. So one of the questions was,
who?
Huh?
Who asked the questions?
They don't want to be known.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Did you buy any of the new set ADK at all?
I did. Sacred Beats and I split a case. We had been splitting a case of every set, so he got 3 boxes, I got 3 boxes. We got the playmats, the promos, and we opened them up, and we felt kind of excited, and we played a little bit, and then we realized that it's called Force of Wind, and I think I played 2 or 3 matches after we got our ADK cards, and I put them in that closet and haven't looked at them since. It's been 2 months now.
Yeah. With that said, did you see the spoilers from this last week?
I did. That one quick cast resonator that cancels automatic or activated abilities is just, it's beyond grotesque.
The one that stole everything that made blue good and made it green.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. It's like, look, if you just gave the counters and cancellations to water, it makes wind balanced, more balanced, and it gives water something to do. You know, it fixes a lot of the problem.
That this card, when you look at I guess right about something else. When you look at this card's abilities and you look at past abilities that have done something similar, they've all been blue, like Glimpse of Kagya and
right,
Keys' Call. So
right.
Yeah, it's a shame that they didn't do that.
Yeah, that's been my biggest problem. Not that I know people might think it's the amount of cancels. My biggest problem right now is that green, they're giving cancels, but they're also giving it blue's effect of alteration. It's giving it draw power that's usually given to blue. It's giving it destruction.
Life
that's
gain.
Black. Yeah, it's giving
life gain, damage. I mean, wind does everything that every other attribute does, but better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I mean, how many? I look at some of the lists. I look at the Reddit all the time, Force of Will Reddit, which is sad, really. But you know, all these lists, they're all either, you know, 100% wind or like 70% wind at the very least. Because of course, if you're gonna play it, play the best attribute. And it's like that poor game balance. They fixed so much with Force of Will, but then they left, like this newest cluster. The Ray cluster was the chance to say, you know what, we're just going to take a hard break with wind. They no longer have the cancels. They no longer have the draw. We're just going to give that to water. There's going to be no explanation. There's none needed. We're just going to do it from that point forward. And they didn't do it.
Yeah, I had pretty high hopes with the power balance, and Ray cluster from Ancient Knights was almost perfect power balance wise.
Yes, definitely.
So I've been pretty disappointed with 80K and now TWS.
I don't think the power balance is ruined in these latest cards. It's just the attribute scheme. You know, you have to think there's the cards themselves for their cost. Are they balanced? I would say yes. In the grand scheme of looking at the metagame, there's another layer. Okay, looking at the logistics of how, once these cards are released, how people will actually utilize them. That's a harder test to do, and one that Force of Will still hasn't mastered. And by year 3, if you haven't done that, it's just not going to happen. You know, that's Magic the Gathering is the perfect example of doing this the right way, in that not only do they balance cards, and sometimes cards get away from them. I mean, they make their bans, but they're really good at anticipating, once these cards are released, how will people use them. That's the other side of the equation that Force of Will apparently does not even conceptualize in the least.
So let me ask you this, because the comment is in the US group, is that you can tell when you see a dying card game because they'll make overpowered cards to force you to want to buy them, sets, helping them sell off the last of that product. Would you agree with that?
That's absolutely true. To give a few examples, I played the Dragon Ball Z CCG, not the Panini one, but the one from Score back in the early 2000s. And I had my best friend at the time was like, Jesus, he was like state champ and like placed 2nd or 3rd at nationals one year, and we were really into it. And I stopped playing after like the Cell Games saga, because I saw the same writing on the wall as Force of Will. Like they had been screwing up the balance between the different attributes in that game, and printing, the power creep was getting worse and worse. And that was, like you're saying, Oscar, the big draw of the new set. It's like, hey, not only in the next set, you know, the World Games after Cell Games, you know, the highest power level isn't 5 million, it's 6 million. You know, it's 7 million. Not only does, you know, this energy attack cost 2 power stages and do 5 damage and can't be prevented, this one does 6 and draws you a card. Don't you want that one? And it's like, it's self-destructive. You should not have to, and it's unsustainable to make a card game that's predicated on selling flashier cards than it is a drastically changing environment. You want every set to give you a new thematic feel that's balanced, rather than a constantly escalating power creep, which is what Force of Will is doing.
Yeah. We had some more questions. One was, are you still collecting Force of Will? Like, will you be buying the new set just to collect some cards, or are you completely done?
I will keep the Force of Will cards that I have. I've played probably 20 or 30 different TCGs, and I've kept most of the cards for them. I will buy the rest of my Force of Will cards after the company goes broke and the cards cost nothing.
Yeah.
There's a game called Wars TCG that was made by Decipher that made the Star Wars. When the Star Wars TCG went defunct, they went defunct because they couldn't pay as much as Hasbro, and who owns Wizards of the Coast, could pay to get the Star Wars license in 2001. So they lost the license to Wizards of the Coast for a dog shit trading card game that they made based on Star Wars. But the game mechanics were so good, Decipher, the company that made the Star Wars CCG, decided to repackage the game mechanics in their own proprietary game, which was good, but who wants to play Wars TCG when you can play Star Wars, card game? So I didn't really buy the cards when they came out, but after 2 or 3 sets after the game went defunct, I think they only made 2 sets, you could buy a starter deck for $2 and a booster box for $8. So I bought...
Judo.
Yeah, exactly. I bought a pallet of... I mean, I'm talking I have 50,000 cards for the game that cost me $100. Yeah. So the same with Force of Will. I like the game. I want to have it as a big piece of my life for a few years, but I will buy the cards after the company goes defunct probably next year.
Okay.
Another question: how did you convince Sacred Beats to get on Discord?
I don't know if I should really say everything I did to get him on there. He actually surprised me because, I would make fun of him a lot for being technologically inept. He's the one that has a college degree in communications and audio-visual engineering, but still he can't navigate Discord at all. Like his audio is always fucked up. He can't do the video, like worse than what I was going through. But I don't have a degree in audio-visual engineering is the thing. So I think me making fun of him enough, finally, he surprised me one day and messaged me, and I was like, who the hell is Rear Admiral Butts? And it's like, hey, this is Chris, which is his real name, and I was like, no shit, I finally got through to him. So you'd have to ask him what finally broke through. I think it was just me calling him a faggot enough times that he decided to do that.
That's awesome.
See a couple more questions here. I'll ask kind of the bigger ones. One, will Ruler and the Beats ever make a return in any form, even if it's like on, say, your new channel, pertain more to your game?
Yes. We talked about this, and we have a couple irons in the fire. Always looking for new projects. I think people who like Ruler and the Beats, who are not many, they like our dynamic. I'm the straight-laced character, and Sacred Beats is the flying off the handle rage at every moment, unredeemable sexual pervert alcoholic character. So people like that dynamic. We've been thinking about doing a podcast that's like that for tabletop gaming in general. So role-playing games, deck-building games, trading card games, all that sort of thing.
Pretty cool.
Possibly video gaming, and possibly something that's more topical, like current events or some such, where we rage on news topics. But essentially keeping our characters the same, even if the names change, but keeping the dynamic the same. I don't think, however, for the Darkest Days brand, if you will, that dynamic will work out very well. But we are considering doing a podcast of some other sort, keeping the same theme that Ruler and the Beats had. Because, let's face it, Ruler and the Beats was barely a Force of Will podcast. It was pretty much just us screaming for an hour every week.
It was enjoyable, though. I liked
it. It was good screaming.
Thank you.
It was good
Thank you.
Some of these questions have already been answered in a way. So the last one would be...
Are you talking about that one?
No, this is the last one in here. So how would somebody who's a collector get real Darkest Day cards?
Okay. Here's the gist of our plan. I don't want to reveal too much, but Lackey is our testing ground. All right. If we can show that we have a decent following with Lackey and people like that, we can move on to investing more heavily into a virtual game, and we also want to produce physical cards. And we want to sell it like an LCG, like Fantasy Flight does, where You don't have to buy. We'd never want to do booster packs. We would want to do like, hey, here's $30, and you get a play set of everything in the first set. You want to buy the second set? It's another $30. You get a play set of everything. You want the third set? There's another $30. You get a play set of everything. And then there's like smaller, every once in a while, promo packs. Don't want to do the booster pack thing. We want to get physical cards printed for the foreseeable future in the next few months. If we get to those 100 Patreon subscribers on patreon.com/darkestdayscg. Pause the video right now and head over there and check it out. But so $1 gets you access to all the spoilers and everything. But if we can get to 100 people, that we have enough funds to start paying for this stuff. Because we're not looking to make money on it. We just want to pay for the next milestone. Winners of tournaments will get sealed packages of physical cards. Like, we want to get to that point. And if, we reach that milestone, then we can start selling via print on demand. This is what we were talking about before. Is like, this is the age in which all this technology is accessible. I could see a time in 6 months, maybe, if we have a few hundred players, where it's feasible for us to say, hey, here's, $25, $20 maybe, you can buy this pre-constructed deck or this set of cards via print on demand. You go to drivethroughcardgame.com, which is a legit site, click on it, pay the money, and then they print it out, package it, and ship it to you. Like, it's already possible. Like, we already have all the files done. We could do it right now. It's just a matter of people being interested, and if you guys are interested, we'll do whatever it takes to get there.
I had personal questions of my own. One of them I was wondering is, since this is your testing grounds using Lackey, is all the design and artwork final? Is this, if it was to make a print run of what's out now, would all that change?
We would hope to change it, depending on what the enthusiasm would be. I've already talked to some graphic designers and artists on the sidelines. We would love to get to a point, and they understand our situation, but I'm saying, like, hey guys, if we can get a few hundred or maybe 1,000 people who download and play the Lackey game in the next 12 months, we think that we could do a Kickstarter and get, X $1,000 together to pay you guys to do original artwork. Like, we'd do the whole first set over again. Mm-hmm. The game's already been tested. We already know what's balanced and what's not. Like Colin said, we've already released some errata for some of our previous cards. And we would be able to we would want to do an entirely new mock-up of everything. It would be original artwork rather than authentic photographs and, little better design than it currently has.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, no, I like the idea that you said as well of doing like the $30 and just getting a play set of everything. Yeah. Maybe, and like doing like maybe side things like, hey, here's a specific event. Here's, D-Day or something. That's $10 for a play set of a very small amount of cards compared to the main theme.
Exactly.
Different things like that would be super awesome, I think.
I mean, look, games are meant to be played, right? So you want to make them as accessible as possible. Free. We decided to go with, Lackey and make it free to start off. It's less risk for us, and it's no risk for the players. This whole booster pack thing has been done to death. The way of the future is the way Fantasy Flight does things with the LCG model. Just give me the cards. Just give me what I need to play. I'll pay you a fair price. We can play the game.
I love that's just access to all the cards.
It's kind of the way I think it should be.
The whole point of the secondary market is like, oh, I can buy this and then I can resell it, and it's like, that frustrates me too. Like, yeah.
Right. It frustrates me as well. As much as sometimes I've always liked the secondary market and the hustle of the game. Like, I see so many people. That's one thing that also turned me off of Force of Will. People kept saying like, "Oh, I don't play it because I can't make money on my investment." It's not a stock, guys. It doesn't pay a dividend. It's not a business that's out there creating value for customers that they can pass off a portion of their profits to you. It's not a financial asset. Like when you go to a movie theater and you watch a movie and you pay $10-15, what's your return on investment? You had a good time for a few hours, right? And that's worthwhile. It's a trading card game. You buy the cards, you play with it, you have fun with your friends, you have fun at a tournament. It's not an investment. It's an expense. It's a pastime. It's a hobby, and I hate that. Like you're saying, with this secondary market, I think it's fun, but people who will literally play a game only because they think they can make money on it, one, won't, because you're probably not going to treat it like a business, and two, you're buying the cards for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I agree with that said.
Yeah.
All right, we should probably wrap it up here. Oscar, I know Oscar's got to get going here. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining us again. And it was great talking to you again. And be sure, guys, to check out all, like I said, it will be linked in the description for his Darkest Days and all that. And let us know your thoughts on all these topics. And yeah, thanks for coming on. Thank
you, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. I want to apologize. I feel like I was a little long-winded there. I didn't want to, just take over the show and just keep going. But I want to thank you guys for allowing me an opportunity to share this with everyone. And just go to darkestdayscg.com, and you can hit me up personally on the contact page if you have any questions. I will literally sit down and teach you the game myself anytime you guys want.
Thank you.
I'm down. I haven't played it yet, so that'd be cool.
All right. Hey, let's do it.
Awesome. All right.